Stay frosty and head over to EasyMut.com for the cheapest MUT coins on the market. And when I say cheapest, I mean it. We're talking 1 million coins for around $40. Use code DIRECTOR for 5% off. Yo, what up, brothers? It's the Director, the freshly cut Director. Chargers fans, we did it, man. Chargers football is this weekend. I know a lot of people are going to be like, yo, Director, it's just a preseason game. Let's not get too excited. It's not like it's September out here. But, dudes, this rinky-dink little preseason game is actually a bigger deal than a lot of us maybe even realize. The battle for L.A. Since the Chargers and Rams have moved into the same stadium, I don't think we've seen such an exciting matchup. Brand new quarterbacks on each side with Justin Herbert and Matthew Stafford. This could be, again, this little tiny preseason game could be a determining factor to some LA residents as to who their NFL team could be. Very exciting stuff, man. I mean, just beyond just wanting to squash the LA Rams into the bloody dirt, we also want to get a good look at what this team could look like, man. It's a brand new team and a lot of different factors. Brand new head coach, defensive-minded head coach. We want to see how he's operating that defense, where players are going to be playing on the field as far as position. A lot of positionless players on the Chargers now, as well as getting a look at the Rams, maybe see a preview of how their season might shake out as well. But this is more about the Chargers. Am I right? How the Chargers are looking. We got brand new free agents, brand new rookies, brand new schemes, Brandon Staley, Joe Lombardi, all the things, and it should be a lot of fun. Before we do get started, guys, as a reminder, I have selected the winners of our last giveaway for the Joey Bosa signed football and the Antonio Gates signed jersey. Heads up to my members, you guys are going to get a sneak peek of the next giveaway coming up very, very soon. And lastly, keep in mind that we are hosting a watch party on Saturday at 7 p.m. Pacific for the Chargers versus Los Angeles Rams game. It should be a lot of fun, guys. We usually have a really nice turnout of Chargers fans. Get in there and hype yourselves up for the first live-action Chargers football of 2021. And with that, let's get into this one. Before we do, hit us up with a like and sub if you do enjoy this content. The small amount of time you guys take to hit the like, sub, and bell notification helps me out a lot. Let's get into this one. Lights, camera, action. The Chargers versus Rams preseason week 1 preview. Hashtag the battle for LA. Dudes, I'm so excited to see this one shake down. The first thing we like to do, if you guys haven't been here last year or whatever, the first thing we always want to do when going into these game previews is take a look at the injury situation. Now, most of the time, there's going to be an injury report, right, that we can go take a look at. This is the preseason. This is the Wild West. No rules. We're going in blind. We really don't know what's going on here. So I was able to dig up some stuff on the Chargers injury, kind of report right now. Give us an idea of maybe who's going to be sitting out, who's going to be playing. And these are the top guys that I was able to dig up. Okay, first off, Brian Bulaga. Of course, a lot of us know that he had some sort of hand injury a couple weeks back. I think he's doing just fine now. But I think Brandon Staley's the kind of guy that if a guy's even a little bit nicked up, he might not take the field, especially for a preseason game. So we might not see a lot of Brian Bulaga out there. Maybe some Trey Pipkins. You don't even know out there. So we'll have to wait and see on the Brian Bulaga situation, but he's one to look out for. Another big name that Chargers fans should probably keep an eye on is Kenneth Murray, K9 Kenneth Murray, who will be sporting number 9 on Saturday. Very exciting, but I also do think he did have an ankle injury during Fan Fest, if you guys do remember, in that scrimmage. It seemed, though, that if it was an actual game in the NFL season, right, then he would have gone back in and played. He probably would have been fine. But because of injury precautions, they decided to hold him out. So I would think maybe he takes a few snaps during the preseason game on Saturday. But I also wouldn't be surprised if Brandon Staley said, it's not worth it. Go ahead and take a seat on the bench and learn, from the scheme and stuff like that in live action. Next up, we do have Corey Linsley, perhaps one of the biggest free agent acquisitions of this offseason of any team. We now have the best center in football, ladies and gentlemen, but he did have some sort of concerning foot injury. Again, I have heard that it's actually not too concerning at all. Again, it's one of those injuries where he would have likely played through it in a regular season game. So again, I would maybe sort of expect to see him in there. If not, maybe Scott Quessenberry gets a couple snaps on offense with the first team, but you never know again. And again, guys, this is more of just kind of, get your expectations out there as far as who you may or may not see take the field on Saturday. And lastly, we got a Tyron Johnson. Tyron Johnson, probably one of the biggest heroes of camp so far. He is definitely one of those guys that you expect to see break out in the regular season. And he has been dealing with, I think, a groin injury, but he did come back to practice. Again, there's a good shot that he probably plays on Saturday, but this does open up the door for a lot of other wide receivers on this depth chart to take the field and maybe try and make the team on their own. So next up, let's take a look at the unofficial depth chart. Now, I know we're all looking at this like, what's going on? Well, this is the best high-res version photo I was able to find, just to kind of get your beaks wet. I'll be reading some of these out loud to you guys that are maybe not as sharply sighted. Even if you were, this thing's really hard to look at. Wide receiver Keenan Allen, Jalen Guyton, and KJ Hill on the top right there. Wide receiver on the opposite side, Mike Williams, Tyron Johnson. So Tyron Johnson at this point being the wide receiver 3. Jason Moore, Joe Reed, Michael Bandy. Of course, we got Austin Poole up there on the top side as well, who's definitely been one of those camp guys. And Josh Palmer, one of those guys we definitely want to keep an eye on in this preseason game, but I'll go over that in just a second again here. This is more about where these guys are playing on the field at offensive line, exactly like we thought it would shake out, right? Rashawn Slater, Matt Filer, Corey Linsley, Oday Abushi, Brian Bulaga. Behind them, you got guys like Pipkins, Hunter, Quessenberry, Lewis, and Storm Norton, right? So if somebody were to set out or whatever, that's the kind of guys you can expect to see in there, at least in those early drives. At tight end, we got Jared Cook, Donald Parham, Stephen Anderson, Trey McKitty, and then a couple other guys trying to make the roster as well. Of course, we got quarterbacks Justin Herbert, Chase Daniel. We got Austin Eckler there, running back with Justin Jackson. A couple of guys. Running back's going to be a very interesting one. And then we'll take a quick look here at the defense. This is actually one of the biggest reasons I'm pulling this up, to kind of show you guys how the Chargers are going to be lining up their players in this new defensive scheme, right? You got Joey Bosa at edge, okay? If you guys are looking for a more traditional 4-3 or 3-4 explanation, Joey Bosa maybe plays, outside linebacker, but it's more of an edge play for him. On the opposite side, you got Uchenna Nwosu listed as the number 1. Then behind him, we have a lot of guys we need to pay attention to. We got Kyler Fackrell. We got Chris Rumpf. We got a lot of guys back there that should be seeing a lot of snaps. So very interesting to see how they're going to be playing the edge position. And the defensive line, at least in the interior, we got Jerry Tillery, Linval Joseph, and Justin Jones. Think of these guys as your right and left hand and nose tackle in a 3-4 scheme, okay? Where things get really interesting for me, at least, is the linebackers, okay? How is Brandon Staley going to play these guys? How much nickel? How much traditional 3-4? Cover 6, cover 3. How he's going to utilize these linebackers? Because for the first time in a long time, the Chargers actually, I would say, look pretty dang good at linebacker, especially in the middle of the field there. Kenneth Murray and Drew Tranquil, of course, your number 1s and 2s. But then we got guys like rookie Nick Neiman. We got undrafted free agent Amin Ogbongbemiga. I got it right this time. We got Kaiser White, who's been incredible. We got Cole Christensen. We got a lot of guys in there that look absolutely smashing. So pay attention to how the Brandon Staley defense looks and which guys are getting snaps at any given time at what position. So I'm just going to say pay attention to those middle linebackers. That's one that I think is very interesting. The Chargers do, for the first time, have some pretty solid depth at that position, and it's going to be interesting to see how they are utilized. Probably the biggest, most concerning spot on the entire roster for me right now, at least, is going to be cornerback, right? I want to see how they're going to shake this thing out. I'm not even cornerback, but defensive back. We got Michael Davis in there listed kind of as a number 1. We've got Chris Harris Jr., then of course Brandon Facyson, Asante Samuel, and stuff like that. So again, I'm going to predict that the way this defense is ran, we might not know what they're playing until they start moving, or if they put a player in motion, see if they're a man cover, something like that. But at the same time, I really want to see how Michael Davis specifically operates, especially in man coverage. I want to see how this DB unit operates in man. Then, of course, we got safeties Adderley, Derwin James, Mark Webb, we should also pay attention to, and Alohi Gilman. Then on special teams, we'll go over this in a second, too. We got new kickers in there, Tristan Vecano, Alex Kessman, and then a couple of guys in the return game, too, we want to pay attention to. So, bit of a better, high graphic or high definition look at these players. These are kind of the guys that I'm going to say Chargers fans pay attention to during this preseason game. These are the guys that I really want to see in action, that I'm most anticipating make a good deal of splash news with the Chargers fans over the weekend. Of course, we got Corey Linsley. We'll keep scrolling down here. Tavon Campbell could be pretty nice. Michael Davis, big one to keep an eye on. Brandon Facyson is going to be a guy that a lot of the coaching staff have been really high on. I want to see how they utilize him. Of course, 6'2", very tall, very fast. I can see why he's an exciting, a guy to to work with for Brandon Staley. Chris Harris Jr., KJ Sales, who was brought in, I think a little bit late here. I want to see how he plays. Of course, Asante Samuel Jr. Okay, so the rookies. I think this is going to be a big reason why a lot of people tune into the preseason games at all. Asante Samuel Jr. I want to see how often they play him, how often he plays with the ones. If he doesn't play with the ones very often, I want to see how he plays with the twos and threes, etc., etc. I want to see Asante Samuel in action. He's one of those guys that a lot of people are very high on to break out this season, a dark horse defensive rookie of the year candidate. I think there's a lot to look into for that. I think Ryan Smith maybe had some injury concern. Ben DeLuca, a lot of these undrafted free agent guys, keep an eye on too. Mark Webb's a great one to keep your eye on as well. Chris Okoye, defensive lineman, 6'6", 320 pounds, just signed him not too long ago. He could be a very exciting guy to take a look at there at the defensive line later in the game as the backups come in. I want to see Justin Jones, Linval Joseph, all those guys in the interior defensive line, Jerry Tillery especially. And I think there was only a couple more guys. The kicking game, okay? The kicking game. I'm actually gonna switch over to this slide right here. The kicking game. This is gonna be a big one. From what I'm hearing at camp, the kicking game, the competition is really underwhelming. And that spells really bad news for the Chargers going into the actual season. We want to make sure we clean this up. How many one-score games have the Chargers lost in the last several seasons? A lot. I think over the last 2 seasons, maybe the most, right? I think a good kicker could definitely tilt a season in our favor. And right now, with the kickers we have on roster, I think Vizcaino has the most promise in him at this point. But even then, that's not the best news. I want to see these guys in live football. I want to see them, each get attempts, PATs, kick out, whatever. I want to see who can put up or shut up. And I don't know how many times we're going to get to see each one of these guys, how many, field goal opportunities we have, how many punt, whatever. I just want to see these guys in action, make sure there's a good competition going on. So things to watch outside of the players. Did we go ahead and finish off this list right here? I think we did get a lot of good guys in there. Nick Neiman, Chen Nwosu, Amon Ogbon, Miga, that's definitely one that you guys want to take a look at there. Good to see Drew Tranquil back, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot of guys to keep an eye on. In the comment section, I want you guys to type out who you're most excited to see. Me personally, Rashawn Slater, Josh Palmer. I want to see Jared Cook out there, Trey McKitty. There's a lot of guys that I think are going to be very excited watches on Saturday, okay? The first thing I want to talk about here outside of the players is the defensive scheme of Brandon Staley. We kind of lightly touched on it before. There's a lot that's going to look different for Chargers fans this season. The last time the Chargers ran a 3-4 defense, I think, was Joey Bosa's rookie season, right? They changed to 4-3 right after that, and the Gus Bradley story is still going on out in Las Vegas with the Raiders right now. For the Chargers, things are going to look pretty fresh. I'm going to say the biggest thing on this defense that I'm looking forward to spectating and understanding is how they're going to utilize more blitz packages, how they're going to get after the quarterback, generate pressure, okay? Where they line up, their edge players, where they line up, guys like Joey Bosa, Uchenna Nwosu, Kyler Fackrell, that could determine a lot of the success the Chargers see in the pass rush. So that's one big thing that I'm excited to see utilized. And of course, the Eagle front, the very, infamous Eagle front that's being brought over from the Los Angeles Rams defensive scheme. That's something I want to see the Chargers execute on the field on Saturday as well. So very excited to see. I want to see our DBs in more man coverage. I want to see our linebackers, utilized in different ways. It's going to be very exciting to watch. And then, of course, Joe Lombardi on the other side of the ball with our offense. I'm more excited to see how he utilizes our scat backs, our receiving backs, okay? I want to see how he intends on using the scheme that made Alvin Kamara so successful with the Chargers here in Los Angeles. So very, very exciting to see both sides of the ball and how these new schemes shake out. Another thing to keep an eye on is going to be the battle of the backups. We already talked about the kicking position. That's going to be a really big one to pay attention to, but we also got to pay attention to the backup quarterback, as the Chargers do have 4 quarterbacks on the roster right now. We should see plenty of action from Stick, Chase, Castello. It should be a really, really good day for those guys specifically, but I want to see who beats who out. Honestly, if I'm going to guess, just spitballing it here at the first preseason game, I think it's going to be Justin Herbert and Daniel Chase. I think that's what they intended to, but they wanted to add some nice competition on the back end there. Lastly, the Rams, and we're just going to kind of blow through this, okay? The Rams have a lot of players coming in. Of course, they have changed their defensive coordinator. He is now our head coach, but a lot of guys to keep an eye on out there. there. You're probably not going to see Jalen Ramsey on the field a lot. I think he's wearing a new number, like number 5 or something, so keep that in mind. Darius Williams, J.R. Reed, Eric Banks. There's a lot of guys out there. Aaron Donald, Greg Gaines. I'm trying to think of guys that maybe stuck out in camp for me. I haven't heard much. Honestly, I don't keep track of the Rams nearly as often as I do the Chargers, but there were some guys in there that you want to pay attention to. Leonard Floyd. You guys should know the playmakers for the other team in Los Angeles at this point. Darrell Henderson. This will be a big one for the Rams. How are they utilizing the running backs? Who's going to be the running back one? Right now, the rumor is Darrell Henderson at this point. And Paris Ford, they've got some rookies of their own coming in there as well, too. So just keep in mind, it's going to be a tough competition. The Rams, definitely a nice team out there. Here's their unofficial depth chart just to kind of get an idea of who's playing where. Their offensive line looks a little bit different. They got Deshaun Jackson in there now. Of course, Matthew Stafford at quarterback. It should be very interesting, okay? So those are the guys to kind of keep an eye on. The last thing I want to mention, too, as far as things that I'm looking for in this game, I would say more in offense. We covered a lot of the defense, is the Chargers running back situation, okay? I want to see Justin Jackson. I want to see, how many snaps does he play? How are they feeling as far as his health? And then, of course, the backups. Joshua Kelly, probably on the bubble to even make the roster. How is he going to do? We got Darius Bradwell out there, who's been a pretty consistent backup for the Chargers. Then we got brand new guys like Larry Roundtree III. How is he going to look in camp and stuff like that? So there's a lot to pay attention to. There's a lot to look forward to. Wide receiver wise, how are they going to shake things up with Jalen Guyton coming in? How much are we going to see Josh Palmer? How effective and efficient are these guys going to be on the field as they do play? There's a lot to be excited about and look forward to. So again, in the comments section, let me know what things you guys are going to be paying attention to and you're most excited to see in this Battle for Los Angeles preseason game on Saturday. So that's going to do it for me, guys. Remember, Saturday, 7 p.m. Pacific, drop into the live stream. There should be a ton of Chargers fans in here hollering and cheering the Bolts. It should be a really good time. And then members, stay frosty. You guys are going to get a preview of our next giveaway coming up shortly. Well, if you guys did enjoy this Chargers content, hit us up with a like and sub on your way out. This has been The Director. We'll see you next time, and as always, bolt up and stay frosty.